Welcome to MOOC course on Buddhist philosophy. The module that we are going to discuss now is entitled Secularist Trends in Modern Buddhism. The objective of this module is to make the student acquainted with the major secularist trends in modern Buddhism. Reference to karma with its implications to rebirth and other worlds is a commonplace in classical Buddhism, both in its Shravakayana and Mahayana forms. The doctrines of karma, rebirth and other worlds are accepted in both Brahmanical and non-Brahmanical systems, of course, except in Charvaka system. In Brahmanical tradition, these doctrines are closely associated with ritualism and the rules governing hierarchical caste system. In non-Brahmanical systems, particularly in Buddhism, these rules are associated with the rules of moral conduct and spiritual advancement. It is held that the results of some morally good or bad actions are not experienced immediately or not even in this life, they are supposed to be experienced in some future birth. For explaining the fruits of highly meritorious or sinful actions, the existence of higher and lower worlds, that is Swarga and Naraka, are imagined. The stages of the aspirant's moral spiritual development are explained in terms of the number of births one is required to spend towards the realization of final liberation, that is nirvana or arhathood. One who has attained sotapanna, that is stream enterer stage, becomes due for final liberation by being reborn at the most 7 times. One who has attained sakadagami, that is once returner stage, becomes due for final liberation by being reborn in this world at the most once. Anagami, that is non-returner, enables one to be finally liberated without returning to this world. Again, though he may be reborn in some other world and be liberated there. Arhat, that is the perfect one, is supposed to be the final stage which liberates one in this life itself. Mahayana Buddhism correlates rebirth with spiritual growth differently. A Mahayanist Bodhisattva does not desire to be liberated from the cycle of births and deaths, but desires to be reborn again and again, even in the lower worlds, till all the beings are liberated. In this way, the traditional Buddhist ethics and soteriology in both their Shravakayana and Mahayana forms contains a strong element of belief in rebirth and other worlds. In the last 2 centuries, due to advent of science which claimed to explain all the phenomena in empirical causal terms, the transcendental beliefs like rebirth, other worlds and disembodied liberation came to be challenged. Against this, some Buddhist thinkers came forward to claim that the core of Buddhism can be maintained without accepting the doctrine of rebirth. The concepts of rebirth and other worlds occur in Buddhism not in isolation, but in association with concepts such as pratitya samutpada, samsara and nirvana. Hence, some of these thinkers also came out with fresh interpretations of these doctrines. The 2 categories of the contemporary Buddhist thinkers can be briefly described as follows. 1. Unconditional rejection of the traditional rebirth doctrine. In this category, I include the Thai spiritual leader Buddha Dasa Bhikkhu, the Indian Buddhist leader Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Stephen Batchelor, the advocate of secular Buddhism. The second category would be accepting rebirth doctrine at belief level, but allowing non-belief at the level of religious practice. Hence, we can include here the Vipassana master Satyanarayan Goenka and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Now, I will substantiate this above categorization with some more details. So, first let us consider how Buddhadasa Bhikkhu can be regarded as a secular Buddhist. Buddhadasa Bhikkhu, whose period is 1906 to 1993, was a Buddhist monk philosopher of Thailand. He presented his position on the question of life after death very clearly in his talk entitled No Religion. He says, there is no need to speak about what happens after death. What is the point of talking about the state of being buried in the ground? It is irrelevant. Hence, the talk about life after death and rebirth taken in their ordinary sense are irrelevant for him. Buddhadasa saw contradiction between anatta and rebirth when he said, even though I am sitting here now, yet there is no individual to be found. When there is no individual, what is to die? What is then to be reborn? This view has implications for his views on other doctrines as well. On the question whether nirvana, that is Pali nibbana, is attained after death or here in this life, he says, teachers who lecture in the fancy preaching halls only talk about nibbana after death. He himself defines nibbana as dying before death, which means dying to selfhood before death of the body. Buddhadasa reinterprets the doctrine of pratitya samutpada in this light. Traditionally, the doctrine, along with its formulation in terms of 12 linked chain or the chain consisting of 11 steps, is said to range over 3 lives. According to Buddhadasa, this is a misconception. According to his interpretation, it is not necessary to cover a period of 3 lifetimes. In the flick of an eyelash, one complete cycle of dependent origination together with its suffering comes to pass. He interprets birth as the birth of a thought involving an attachment of any kind. Birth and rebirth in this sense occur every now and then in our life. In a booklet called ABC of Buddhism, he calls it the law of idapachayata and explains it without reference to prior birth or next birth. He explains even the 4 Aryan stages of spiritual development, that is stream enterer, once returner, then non-returner and arhat, without reference to rebirth.